Allie Edwards, and in this video I am going to take you through the process that I go through when I start putting my Week in the Life album together. So at this point in the process, I have completed the documenting week. I have gone through, I've taken 7 days, I've taken pictures, I've written down journaling. I did it a little bit different this year than I did in past years. I used a specific prompt or a jumping off point for each day. And I think that's gonna be the bulk of my journaling, but I'm probably gonna put some on top of my images as well. So what I wanted to do first thing was just kind of show you what is in my album right now as I start this process, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how I am choosing my photos to add into my project, because I usually start with my photos first. So when I start the process of putting this project together, I usually come over and I sit here at my desk at my computer so that I can easily access my photos, and I have my album sitting out on the table next to me here, so that what I do is I look for the photos that I want to include specifically in the page sizes that I want to include with them. So in this case, I knew that I wanted a photo enlargement that would go on the other side of this, so I picked one for that. But other than that, I know right here that I'm gonna be using 3 4x6 photos, so I have spots for 3. You can see I printed one out already. Here is my 2x2 pocket page. This is for Monday. Again, so you can see that a lot of those are filled in already. I'm not sure if I'm gonna add things to the back of this or not. I haven't really decided. Next is the 4 pocket 3x4. You can see that I filled out my gratitude for the day, and I did that during the week itself. But from here, I know I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 3x4 photos. I don't have the large 6x12 page protector in here. I took it out. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it or not. So that's not very many photos when you really look at it in terms of the page protectors that are included with the album. So at that point you can decide, do I want to add more? And many people do. So a lot of times I will print them out and then add them just by punching holes in the prints themselves to be able to include more photos. So sitting at my desk with this right next to me helps me determine what photos I actually want to use or how many I actually need. And I print here at home. I've got another post up that shows, or another post available about printers, so you can see which printers I actually use. But next up, let's go to my computer, and we'll switch to a screen, recording screen on my computer, so you can see how I look at my photos and decide which ones I want to include. All right, so here I am. I'm sitting at my table here. I have my album open next to me, and now I'm going to start pairing and cropping photos to add into my album and or add text onto them, which is, I haven't decided exactly yet, and then printing any other larger ones. So this is a look at my May 2020 that I took with my DSLR. So those are all my photos for the week. There's only 250 photos for the week. For me, that's not as many as I've taken before, and you can see that there's a bunch that are duplicates. So a lot of times I take this opportunity to clean up my photos and, you know, kind of delete the ones that I know that I'm not going to use. And some of these I won't use at all. Some of these, like, I'll probably use one of these puzzle ones. I won't use this one. I already know that I'm not using any of these. I just hadn't deleted them yet. So that's going to, you know, each time I delete these, it takes less off there. And I don't think I'm going to use any of those either, because they just didn't turn out right. I may use one of these tree ones. This is where I was just playing around in the backyard, so maybe I'll use one of those. But you can see how quick I am when I'm looking at these, and I'm like, nope, 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 not going to use that one. I know that most of the ones that I included in my blog post I will want to use. Sometimes when I have different versions of like the flowers like this is really where I was kind of playing around with one of my lenses. I won't necessarily delete all those, but I also won't use all of them. sometimes I come back in here and would potentially use those in the future for other projects. So if there's still like a quality photo that is representative of our, one part of our life, I might use that at one point or another. This is the first one that I took for that day, and I don't think I'm going to use that one. This was also one that a photo that I tried to take, but you can see that it didn't. The result wasn't good, and I don't think that I am going to use it, especially since I don't have a ton of spots for photos. I think I have another photo this week too where I'm feeding cats, so I don't necessarily need to have that one. But then we move into some of these, and you can see that I had already cropped this one based on what I showed in my blog post. So if you don't know, every day during Week in the Life, during the actual documenting portion, I post to my blog the photos that I took over the course of the day. So my main part of my process now is deciding, okay, which of these photos do I want to include? Like I have multiple coffee photos. I think that that's probably the one that I want to include rather than these ones, but I am going to keep those. So laundry, yes, coffee, yes. And I'm actually going to drag and drop them into Photoshop because that's where I want to do my editing. I don't think I'll use any of those. This one I want to use because it was a box and I got a story to tell about that. So I'm not deciding on sizes right now. I'm just deciding on ones that I want to consider. So I'm just dragging them. This one, this is lunch. All of these ones here across here are all ones that I would like to consider including. And like I said, and I think I can skip the trees. That one is the exercising one. I want to include that. That was cooking dinner. That's a maybe. I feel like that one's a maybe. We'll put that in there. And this is the process that I'm going to follow for all of the days. So not just Monday, but this is what I'll do for each day. But I usually tackle one day at a time in terms of the photos. And then I also have a picture that I took of the journaling. That actually helps me designate where one day ends and then the next day begins. So you can see then for the next day, actually that one's closer in there. But anyway, so that will be for Tuesday. So now I've picked out the ones that I know that I want to work with. So then I come into Photoshop, and at this point, this is where I need to decide, okay, which of these can be 3x4 and fit into those pockets. So I know this one can. And I'm going to come up here in Photoshop and I'm going to adjust this to 3" by 4". And you may not be adjusting yours in Photoshop, which is perfectly acceptable. But that is one of the ways that I like to edit and then print my photos. So that one I know is going to be 3x4. And this is the point where I need to decide, do I want to add text onto these photos that is different from the stuff that I wrote down on my loving page that I hand wrote. And I think that I do want to do that. And what I really want to add is just really basic stuff. Like for this one, I'm going to grab the type tool. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to draw a text box. And then I'm going to say the peonies. Let's see. Let's make that text white so you can actually see it. And then I'll probably use... This is my favorite typewriter font. It's called Remington Noiseless. I use it all the time. And just say, the peonies are coming. Something like that, and probably in a smaller size here. So let's see. Maybe like 10 or even 9. It doesn't have to be very big, but I will want to move it around to where it can fit, within the photo itself. So it could be that like that. I might do it this way. This doesn't preclude me from adding other embellishments on here, but I love that it adds context, right? Especially because I'm doing journaling in a different way this time. By adding just a little bit of something onto the photos themselves, I can say, these are in my backyard and these are here, or these are there, things like that. So then I will just print this out. And then I go through that same process with all of these, looking through and deciding, do I want to print this one at 4x6, or do I want to print it larger to have it be in my album? And one of the things that I am considering this time is including some 5x7 sizes, just a little bit bigger for the ones that are going to go outside of the pockets themselves. And I think that's what I'm going to do. The Epson PictureMate PM400 printer that I have, you can print 4x6 and 5x7, and I do have some 5x7 photo paper here. So I think I'm going to play around with that as well. So like I said, my next step here is simply to just go through these photos and print them out, and then I will move back over to my desk. And I think that's probably the way that I'm going to work this year, is one day at a time, just finishing up one day before I move on to the next. I've done it different ways in different years. Sometimes I will do all the photos first. That's this is my initial thought. We'll see what actually ends up happening. All right, friends, I have made it over to my desk. I have my photos printed out for Monday, and now I'm going to start that process of kind of bringing it all together, figuring out how I want things to go. Remember, I've got my page that I wrote out during the week. I'll have at least one full page photo. I'm trying to decide if I want the full page photo behind the transparency or if I want the words. I think either way will be fine. I also need to decide what I want to put on here. I'm actually kind of thinking about a quote potentially. That was one thing that I thought of. You could absolutely put a photo there if you wanted to. Lots of different options depending on your situation. You can see that I did add words to a lot of the photos, not all of them. This one in particular was one that my mom actually sent, and so I excuse me, printed up what I wrote on my Instagram photo related, or on my Instagram post related to this photo, and I printed it out on a 4x8 tag and then punched the holes using the 6-hole punch. I'm gonna put something on the back. I haven't decided yet exactly what that will be. Then I went ahead and did 5x7 photos that need to be adhered back to back. Again, just a little bit of information went on there. So I've got 2 back-to-back 5x7s. I'm just kind of giving you an overview right now, and then I'll dive into finishing it up. My page my page of ephemera is there. Again, I'm not sure yet on the back. Then I have one more 5x7 front to back here that goes then into my 3x4s, which I think will just be the end of the day. In the past, I've added in large 6x8 photos, but I think I'm not gonna do that on the end here and have it end that way and then move into Tuesday. You can see that I haven't printed anything out for that yet. I wanted to just start with Monday and be able to give you a bigger overview. Also, I know a lot of you who participated in the Week in the Life prep day saw where I did this traveler's notebook that's gonna live in the inside. The kids filled it out. Erin and I have not. I'm not sure if we will, but I definitely have the kids. And I also took pictures of all of them that I printed out here that will be full page photos of them, which I totally love, and love how that turned out. I mean, just having the pictures of them, even without the them writing a little bit about right now, would be awesome. So that's another part of what I am planning on working on with this first piece. I also have the products out on my desk, so that makes it really easy to be able to grab them, the pieces from the kit, as well as the extra pieces that we had in the shop. And I'm just gonna dive in and start deciding, where do I want to add embellishments? What kind of embellishments do I want to add? How much more do I want to add? Sometimes I feel like I want to add a lot more, and other times I don't. And I think it's a nice reminder that we can have a project that doesn't have to have a ton of extra stuff on it too, right? That this can be and we talked about that a lot before, so I don't feel like I need to say a lot about that. And then also figure out what do I want to have on the back of here. I might look at my photos and see if I have another one, and this may end up being a place for the hexagons. That was another thing. I know that I want to use one for each day, and I just kind of need to figure out how and where I want to do that. That could easily go on here, or this could also go on the back side, and I'll probably end up doing a tag for each day. I don't have the same sort of written up thing, I don't think, but maybe I do, because I did share a photo each day. So maybe I'll take on Instagram, so maybe I'll take whatever I wrote on Instagram for each day and either expand on that or add it in there for a little bit more context. All right, I'm gonna dive right in. So So I decided to start off working with the tag, and one of the first ideas, this is the back of the tag, right? You saw where I printed one of my stories on there. One of my first ideas was to use the label stamp, that filled in one there, and create a pattern on the back of my tag. And so I was going to use the oval, and I don't end up using this. I might use it somewhere else, or the idea somewhere else, because I do cover this up, but I wanted you guys to see, one way if you wanted to add in some tags or some other kind of story like this, that you could easily create a pattern on the back. And this one was actually just a test. I tested it out first to see if I even liked it. I used the Memory, I think it's called Memories. It's another stamp set that we offered for Week in the Life, but they work right together. Some of them fit inside the shapes. The sentiments fit inside the shapes. So I decided I was going to go that route. And so that other one was my test, and this was going to be my real one. But then after I did a few, I was like, it's still not exactly what I want. And so instead, what I decided to do was dive into my pattern paper stash and see what I had in there that could be used for this. You can see here that I was still going on this idea, and then I was kind of back and forth. But I found this Day of the Week pattern paper. This is we had a kit last year called the Good Old Days kit, and you can actually still order the kit and or a pattern paper. There's 6 pattern papers that are included with it, and I'll link that below if you want to grab a piece of this. Then I used my 6-hole punch there to punch holes along the edge, as well as a crocodile to punch that middle hole, and then later on in the process I'll add a piece of twine on there. But I did still like the idea of using the stamps in this way, and so I did just one here with the yellow. The honeyman is the background, and then Stays on Ink with the sentiment on top, and just cut around it to create a border, and I ended up adding this onto the back of this tag. So I think that that's a fun way to approach it. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to have a tag in every day. Like, I don't feel like I have to have the exact same thing on every day, because some of the days are different. A lot of times when I've followed a formula, I've kept it exactly the same, but I'm feeling a little more free this time. So I may not do that in the exact same way. I'll probably treat things the same if I do add them. We'll just see how it goes. This is what I'm committing to do for Monday, and from there, who knows. All right, so then I went ahead and I continued adhering my photos back to back. These again are 5x7 photos. If you have the Epson PictureMate PM400 printer, that's the one I use for all my 4x6s. It also prints 5x7, which can be really handy. In the past, when I've added photos in back to back in my album, I've used 4x6 size, but I always talk about how much I love the full page photos, and I was like, why don't I just use the 5x7 size instead? So that's why you're seeing 5x7 in this album. Another thing that you're going to see in a little bit is I did change it up a little bit in terms of what I did with the 5x7 pictures, and I end up using a circle punch to punch out a portion of those pages, and you'll see that in a little bit. I did put the enlarged full page enlarged photo, adhered that back to back with the journaling that I did during the week itself, and I'm just adjusting that right now and adding that into my album using the 6-hole punch. I trimmed it down a little bit because it was a little bit longer, but here you can kind of see how I have the tag in there now, and kind of went back and forth on, do I want to add something on top? What do I want to add on top? I started looking through the products that I had here. A lot of what I'm doing at this point in the process is trying to figure out what I want to do. I don't always have a specific formula in mind for playing around with how I want to embellish this. I have a kind of a general idea, and then when I get into the album itself, I make choices as I go along the way. So again, I think that that's part of the normal piece of the process, especially for me, is just kind of looking, playing, and then making some decisions. So I made a decision that I'm going to add the hexagons onto my photo enlargement that I will have for each day. But after that point in the process here, I'm just adding, I'm looking at the chipboard pieces, I'm looking at the word phrase stickers, I'm trying to decide what do I want to add in here to embellish this a little bit. I'm also stamping. So one of the things that I did here was I pulled out one of those 5x7 photos and I used one of the stamps, the Today stamp with StazOn. I think I probably need a new StazOn ink. After a while, they do end up drying. And so it's a little bit, it's an imperfect stamp, which I'm personally totally fine with. And that's what it looks like now. So I did one stamping on one photo. I added one of these pleather stickers from the kit onto another one. Again, like I said, I'm not having the exact same treatment for all my pictures, which is something that I've done in the past. This time I decided to just kind of go for it. I also took the Monday card, the Monday journal card, 4x6 journal card, and I ended up typing up on my computer some thoughts as I look back. So it has a little bit of a reflective tone to it, talking about when I look at all these, when I look at all these images now, a week after I took them, how do I feel and what do I think and what do I see? And that's how I took care of the journaling for that on top of that card. And I actually ended up using the digital version of that card and then reprinting it out. You can print onto the cards if you want to. It was just easier to print the other way. I also added in a couple more 2x2s. You can see and read more about that 4x6 journal card, the Monday journal card, on my blog post. There'll be additional information on there as well. One of the things that happened too when I was putting this together was I did check out my blog post so you can see where I used a 1.5 inch circle punch to punch a half circle on these 5x7 photos. I punched it out and then I used a little piece of transparency. It's like the thicker plastic transparency, and I put those in between the two pictures and then added a little embellishment and or a stamp on top of there. So my video didn't get it, but you'll be able to see it in the post itself, which ended up being a little bit more of how I embellished some of those larger photos. I did add white letter stickers from the booklet, the sticker booklet that we offered this time, and I also added chipboard pieces onto some of those photos. So I would say, I did. Yes, great. Okay, you're going to see it here. You'll just see it on one. At least you can see where I started it. And I punched these holes just because I wanted a little bit of extra something. And what you can't see is where I add in the transparency. But like I said, you can see that in my blog post itself. Just a little bit of a different way of how to add in a few more embellishments there. And you'll actually see it, I believe, during this flip through, because I think that this was part of that. Again, my full blog post has a closer look at each one of these pages, so you can see a little bit more in more detail if you want to. Just as I flip them through here, there's the twine that I added on the top. You can see there's where the plastic is in between the two photos, so I just kind of peeled them up a little bit. I put an asterisk back to back on one of them. I stamped on one of them using StazOn, which is definitely something that you can do. And I also stapled one of the transparent hearts on one of them. So lots of different ways that you can play around with those. But this is a look at Monday and how I put Monday together. I will be moving on to Tuesday next, so let me know if you have any questions below.